يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية
زاد أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، ومكارم الأخلاق ندرسها معا، أدب وتربية على الإحسان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Continuing with the Islamic education level 4 and the diseases of the heart, and continuing with the subject of following the desires, which is one of the diseases in the heart. Following the desires versus following the wahy, the revelation from Allah. And we are being tested with this, whether to follow the revelation from Allah or to follow the desires. And the revelation from Allah would not deprive you from your desires, but this is the act of following. Which one do we follow? We'll talk about the reasons and some of the reasons why a person would follow their desires, turning away from the haqq, from the truth, from the clarity of the truth. One of which is when a person is not used to control his desire from early age. And this is a serious matter, the way of our upbringing of our children. A child is raised to follow his desire. Every time he wants, he gets. Anything he wants, he gets. There's no no, right? There's no no to the child. Everything is yes, yes, yes. And there's no punishment if he do something wrong, especially after 7 years old, after 10 years old, and things like this. So therefore, he's raised to follow his desire, and his life becomes the worldly matters that he wants to attain. He wants to be this and that, and all what he sees is that the successful ones on the face of earth are the ones that are healthy, the ones that are wealthy, the ones that follows their desires. So they become their models in this life. And that's why the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they made it very clear when it comes to raising their children is to control their desires while they are still young in age. That's why they would train them to make siyam in Ramadan. They are commanded to make the salah when they're 7 years old, every salah, and that requires some determination. Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. As the Prophet ﷺ commanded the wali, the guardian of the child, مُرُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَهُمْ أَبْنَاءُ سَبْعٍ وَضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا وَهُمْ أَبْنَاءُ عَشْرٍ. That you command your children to pray when they're 7 years old. That means they are with you in every salah, making sure that they don't miss a salah. But they're not responsible for their actions yet, so they're not to be punished. 10 years old, if they miss it, then there is punishment. As everything else in one's life. And you take them for Hajj if they're young, and so on. So the issue of the tarbiyah or the upbringing when a person is in young in age. But that's not an excuse if someone was not raised like this and then he repented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he became a Muslim, he was not. Then there is a level required for a person to train himself, to work on himself, to have that control of one's life, to suppress the sinful desires by following the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of these reasons also is to sit with the people of desires and to make them one's companions. Because human beings, they love to have, of course, company and the environment that they're in. So whatever the person's friends are, he will be like them. الْمَرْءُ عَلَى دِينِ خَلِيلِهِ فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the man is upon the religion of his closest friend. So let each one of you look of who is his friends. So not to then take anyone's as friends. So if a person takes someone that has weakness in his zeal, in his determination, he be like him. If he takes someone that is sinful, and that's why the sinful ones, they are the weakest people. Because what does that mean to be sinful? That means you're weak. You're not strong. You're not a man enough. Because every time you have a desire, you just follow it. This is not the proper way of doing things. So having the companions and the friends to be strong and to have determination with matters of the religion. And that's why the early generations of Islam, they would warn against sitting with the people of al-ahwa, the people of desires and deviation. لا تجالسوا أصحاب الأهواء. Their desires and their matters of belief, let them astray, do not sit with them. And as Abu Qilabah, he said, فإني لا آمن أن يغمسوكم في ضلالتهم, because I don't feel secure that they would make you immersed and dipped in their deviation. أو يلبسوا عليكم بعض ما تعرفون, or they will make you confused of some of the things that you know and you have certainty upon. So this is part of our deen, part of our creed, that we oppose the people of bid'ah innovations in the deen, and we stay away from them, we boycott them, we do not deal with them. And the very most important benefit of that is to protect oneself and to protect one's heart, and to make sure that the religion is not being added on anything to it or taking anything away from it. Another reason why following the desires becomes easy is when a person's knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hereafter is weak. A person doesn't know much about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does not have this exaltation of Allah. Doesn't know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His names and attributes. Does not realize who's the one that he is disobeying. Who's the one that he's been in state of forgetfulness and following his desires and not the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also the hereafter. وَمَا قَدَرُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. They did not estimate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way it ought to be. وَالْأَرْضُ جَمِيعًا قَبِضَتُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتُ مَطْوِيَّاتٌ بِيَمِينِهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ. When the earth is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment, and the heavens are all folded by the right hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is to be glorified subhanahu wa ta'ala above all of what they associate partners with Allah. So not knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His names and attributes, not knowing what's going to be in the hereafter. Also, one of these means is when it comes to our duty towards those who follow their desires. Meaning, we don't do much of enjoining good and forbidding evil. So as a result of that, you would find the person that follows his desire, he keeps on continuing following his desire. Why? Because he doesn't see anyone that is forbidding him or telling him that this is wrong. People are not warned against them. So this is part of the duty of the deen of Allah, is to learn what is good and what is bad, to warn people from what is bad. And this is something that should be done by the people of knowledge and the students of knowledge and those who have the knowledge of what is right and what is wrong. One of these reasons is the love of this worldly life and relying upon it and being satisfied with it and forgetting the hereafter. And this is, as a result of that, a person would follow whatever he desires. If a person have the heart concerned and attached to the hereafter, this is what he desires. He would follow that, and the only way to attain what's in the hereafter is through the wahy, revelation from Allah. So he would follow the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. When the heart is not upon that, what happens? A person would follow the worldly desire. Also, one of these means is having the ignorance of what's the consequences, the end of things, as a result of following the desires. And that the worst of it is for the person to enter the hellfire. When someone has an exam and he doesn't study for it, if he doesn't know if it doesn't matter whatsoever, he's going to get an A anyway, so why would he study? But if he knows that he's going to fail, and as a result of that, he might be kicked out of the school, and then all kinds of other things will happen to him, he will take the matter seriously. So that's how knowledge changed the person. So as a result of that, there are certain harms that comes as a result of following the desires, and there are so many. One of which, and the worst of it all, is for a person to lose the hereafter. فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the people of Jannah, as for those who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and feared standing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they forbade themselves from the sinful desires, what happened to them? فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. The Jannah is their place. So the way to enter Jannah, that there's no way out. A person has to work on himself to forbid oneself from one's personal desires that opposes the deen of Allah, that is against the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be obedient to Him. The desire leads the person to be a deviant, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. إن يتبعون إلا الظن وما تهوى الأنفس ولقد جاءهم من ربهم الهدى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the people of deviation. They only follow their thoughts and then what they desire. Many people, they don't want to even embrace the deen of Islam because of that weakness. They want to follow their desires. They don't want to be deprived from the desires that they fulfill. So they turn away from even thinking of what's right and what's wrong. They don't want anyone to disturb them from whatever desires that they're indulged in. Never, to benefit from the Quran and the admonitions. The Quran is revealed for people to benefit from it. And also there's no way away from the Quran. This is the means of guidance. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sealed their hearts. ومنهم من يستمع إليك حتى إذا خرجوا من عندك قالوا للذين أوتوا العلم ماذا قال آنفا أولئك الذين طبع الله على قلوبهم واتبعوا أهواءهم. Those who Allah sealed their hearts and follow their desires, they listen to what the Prophet ﷺ says, but they don't benefit from it. They don't pay attention to what is being said. They make mockery of it and things like this. So also one of the things is that desires would corrupt the heart. The desires corrupt the hearts and makes it away from being sound and steadfast. And this is the sound heart is the one that is away from that. It's one of the means to lose one's reason and intellect and knowledge, because it's either the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or then people would follow their desires. Makes the person, the gates of tawfiq and help, as it's mentioned, becomes shut down for the person. He's not being helped in this life. Why? Because the desires and following one's sinful desires make him away from being guided and helped by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is a dangerous thing. Makes the person belittle the sins. The heart becomes hard, and a person then doesn't really care whether he do a sin or not. And that's what Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said that the believer, he sees his sin as if he is sitting under a mountain almost going to collapse on him. And the hypocrite or the fajr or the wicked ones, يَرَى ذُنُوبَهُ كَذُبَابٍ, he sees his sins like a fly, that it comes onto his nose and he would say this to it and it flies away. Belittles the sin. When a person finds himself saying, well, at least it's a small sin versus those who make major sins, that means there's a disease in the heart. So this is something that we have to exalt the sins, major and minor and everything. And also one of the means for the person to be humiliated is basically following the desires. Those who follow the matters of determination and the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're away from being humiliated and being losing the barakah and the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who have that control in their lives by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to cure us from the diseases of the heart. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية زاد
أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، ومكارم الأخلاق ندرسها معا، أدب وتربية على الإحسان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.